Welcome. So in this video, what we'll be doing is talking about the neck and the anatomy of the neck. What I'm asking or proposing in this video is that you don't draw it, you don't learn the anatomy, but instead you design the neck in a way that contributes to the overall flow rhythm of the figure as a total. Basically, what I'm asking you to do is don't make the mistakes that I made early. As you can see from this sheet, these are my influences growing up. Primarily, I was as I've made clear in prior videos, incredibly inspired by Todd McFarlane and Rob Liefeld. But all of them never drew necks. They would do nests of veins and then put a head on top. Or the poses were so contorted and extreme that the neck was foreshortened and not visible. That's an incredibly dynamic and engaging way of showing action and a certain body type, but it can make the more academic qualities of showing the neck, if we kind of pull back from that genre, from that style, super challenging. So shifting into our diagram here of a neck, what I'm asking you again to do is not this, right? To not deal with it or have to deal with it at all. Instead, I'm going to propose a few things that you could do to set this up. Think about it in a way that might be a little bit more simply, and then return to this as a simple design. So first thing would be, what are we looking to do when making a neck? So I would propose that when we're thinking about this, and maybe we even see this model for the figure, that what I end up doing is subtracting all that's there, right? So I'm really not interested. In fact, let's just completely turn that off or turn it down. So instead, I would rather that we look at the neck, or I would rather look at the neck as a simple column. So take this, right? Take one pillar, one column form, and instead first start there. The number one thing that I see students leave out or miss is just the basic idea that there is a neck, right? So if we have a head, and give you a little more of a simplified diagram of what I've done larger there to the right. Here's the head. The neck is a column. It can be slightly, or I would make it slightly thinner than the head, and then find some way of attaching it first to the tilt and angling of the shoulder, and then the larger form of the rib cage. So I think if you can get this far, you're already no pun intended, headed shoulders a 10 above where I was, coming off of looking primarily at comics. And this is what I see, simply enough, this is what I see people missing the most, is the head as an area of connection. It's like the shoulder or the wrist or the hip, or it's any area that exists in between, we tend to not want to draw. So if we can get this far, right, thinking of the neck as something that exists there that we don't overlook. Again, I see a lot where people just kind of put a nice head and then float it over the torso and the body. So I'm also not looking to do that. I'm looking to kind of force myself to address the absence or that gap in the figure early on. Then from here, I could start to address a few other things. So let's say connection and just finding its shape is number one. Two is that the head can have a gesture onto the neck, onto the shoulder. So what I'm really looking for is the dynamic movement of these three parts: head, neck, shoulder. So how would we think of that here if we want to just isolate this area for a moment? Well, first, just think of the shape of the neck alone. Don't worry about anything in addition to that. So what could the shape do? So the shape of the neck, if we start with something that's kind of more neutral here, well, it could lean. The head could bend side to side, and so maybe we would see the neck doing something like this. Some kind of a dynamic tilt or lean where we would see one side pinch and the other side stretch. Or maybe the head looks down, and so we feel like the whole thing kind of pinches front to back a little bit. So in this case, it's pushing this way and pinching out. Or maybe the head is lifting, like looking up, and in that case, we'd see the neck get longer and thinner. right? Because it's stretching that way, so this area bends. Anything, right? All of these are gestures that would storytell, but still preserve a connective quality, right? It's still going to be a bridge, but first that bridge needs to be doing something. I said that one of my main mistakes early on was this, leaving the negative area, right? Just floating the head over the shoulder. I'd say a secondary area was or a secondary mistake would be if I included the neck, it would always be pillar-like without any gesture or movement. Like it's just stuck there, right? With no, like whiplash, like every figure's neck is incapable of motion. So this solves that. So let's say first, the neck as a shape is our primary concern. Two, that shape can have a gesture. So here's how we're working through this. Number one is shape. Number two is what is the gesture? And number three is how does the neck tie on to the body? How does it perspectively create passage from the head into the rib cage? And for that, if we think about perspective, I'm going to keep the same techniques that I did or do in every other video, which is wrapping lines and overlaps. And this tends to be the hardest for a lot of people, I think, for good reason. So easy way to deal with this, look and consider the neck from the side. We have the head. The neck is always pushing the head forward, right? So then the rib cage would be here at a slight counter angle. This is because the cervical spine is angled off the thoracic spine. Cervical spine goes this way, seventh cervical here, thoracic spine goes that way. Now, this is a bit of an exaggeration, but I'm trying to get you out of the, whiplash head, that everything is moving this way all the way down. So if we turn that a bit, we can solve the perspective pretty easily. Anytime I see a figure that would be back 3/4, or anything like that, the relationship between the two masses, head and rib cage, through the neck, will always be of a perspective setup like this, where I'm going to be seeing the neck moving away and plugging into the back of the head. So this here is a wrapping line that wraps the neck into the sphere of the skull shape, and then overlaps where I've pushed that form into the sphere to begin with. So there's a T, T, wrap. You could use the spine if it helps to kind of connect these. We'll talk about that in a second. The rib cage would be back here. And so the rib cage is going to do the same. It's going to wrap with the neck and then show some quality of overlap. If you can begin to do this for your necks, right, from the back or from the front, you're going to tie them together in a form that shows perspective, or as a form that shows perspective. If you see anything that might be front view, so let's say this is the front of the head, face looking forward, the neck's going to do the opposite. It's going to move backward in space because we're using this as our model to kind of understand everything. Backward in space, moving away. So I'm overlapping it, wherever it touches the head, T and T. And then the rib cage, it's going to plug into with the wrapping line. So I'm thinking of this wrapping into the rib cage. So that's borrowing on its surface contour and making a connection there. Seems simple, but those are the big three things. Shape, right? And you can even change that shape to reflect body type if you want. What the shape can do, gesture, perspective. This trumps anatomy every day. If you can just do these three things to your shape, the next few steps that I'm going to show you will just be icing on the cake. There'll be a way for you to already have a strong gesture-filled perspective and dynamic neck that doesn't break continuity with your core masses, and then adds a little bit extra on top like I'm showing up here, just to convince the viewer of a bit more realism.